There have been some Ukrainian successes in the counteroffensive, but the Russian claims to have captured Western tanks, the Russian attack on Zelenskyy's hometown, this is just sort of, it's messy. And the Russia keeps, or rather Putin's Kremlin keeps attacking civilian sites, and it's very difficult to find anything positive to say about the Russian initiative. I had some reservations about the move by Russian bands of pro-Ukrainian supporters moving from Ukraine into Belgorod. I had some worries about that. But for the most part, I think the Ukrainian position is virtuous and the Russian position is vicious. And I'm using the Aristotelian terms. And I think there's a moral issue here. It's not just a political issue or a pugilistic issue. It's a moral issue. And Putin is on the wrong side. And this war needs to be brought to a speedy conclusion. It doesn't matter how many generals are killed. It doesn't matter how much land is surrendered or reacquired. What matters is that Putin is brought to the negotiating table as fast as possible. Now, for that to happen, I'm afraid Putin has to get his nose blooded. And that can be done either by his own domestic audience or by Zelenskyy's troops. But I'm afraid the only negotiations that will take place at the moment are on Putin's terms, and those are not acceptable. An invader does not get to call the terms. I think I fear, in this at least, Boris was right. Boris was absolutely right. And the world that says that we should give Putin credibility is utterly wrong. The problem is that as wars go on, the virtue on one side is clouded by the fog of war and by the activities of people with their backs up against the wall. And people do not always behave well. People do not behave well in war. That's the nature of the beast. And the longer this goes on, the harder it's going to be to define what is right and what is wrong. So I think it's so important to call out what is right and to keep asking the questions, not who has the opportunity to do something, but who benefits from something. Cui bono? Ukraine doesn't benefit from the destruction of the dam. Ukraine doesn't benefit from the destruction of the underwater pipe, Nord Stream. Russia benefits from both of those. And I think it's very difficult to see Russian sabotage as anything other than Russian sabotage. Russia wants to inflict as much damage on Zelenskyy and Ukraine as it possibly can. It wants to make sure that even if Ukraine negotiates a viable solution, it will be sabotaged for the next 10 years, simply rebuilding its country. That is Putin's aim. The annihilation of a coherent and active state. And I think that's wrong.